Hi, welcome back to the channel. Today we've got a real special watch. A few people have asked me to do a review on this watch, and basically here we are. This is the Rolex 1665 Sea Dweller, or more commonly known as, this one is the double red Sea Dweller. So basically, before I get into the video, please feel free to like and subscribe and comment below. It's always interesting when I do get comments, and it's always nice if people are watching the reviews and subscribing. It gives me more incentive to carry on with it. So anyway, this is where the Sea Dweller really started. Yes, I know there was a single red prior to this, and there was only about, I believe, under 10 or 10 actually accounted for in the world, so I'm not really counting that. That to me was a prototype watch. This was the first time the Sea Dweller really existed. This is the first, this is alpha, this is the first time Sea Dweller was seen on a dial. Now, the Sea Dweller has always been a beefier, chunkier, sort of like Submariner on steroids, so to say. And the reason why that was is back in the mid 60s or even early 60s, more people were diving and needing a watch. At that time, remember, this was what they used. There was no dive computers or anything like that. They needed watches which could handle going down to incredible depths and being able to use in decompression. Now, at the time, the watch of choice, I believe, was the Submariner 5513, which is a great watch, but I believe back then it only had a depth rating of 200 meters. Now, people were going down to 500 meters or so, and they needed something more substantial. The Sea Dweller was the answer to this, but not only was it because of depth rating, it was also because of this little fella on the side here. That is the helium release valve. Nowadays, lots of watches have got, helium release valves. I've got my Spinnaker Bronze, which has got helium release valve. But remember, back then, this was cutting edge technology. This is where it all started. And the reason why you have this is saturation diving was a more common thing, because basically time is money to a diver, and instead of using nitrogen with a mix of oxygen where they had to do more decompression time, they actually started using helium and oxygen. And what would happen is the watch would actually get full of helium in the decompression chamber, and of course when they first get in, it would be equal to the pressure of water on the outside. And what would happen as they started to decompress, the helium couldn't get out of the watch fast enough, and so the weakest part on a watch is the crystal fitment, because that's where you've got the big gasket going around, and that's where the helium will try and get out, and it would actually pop the crystal out at some force, and then you're pretty well done for if you've got a watch with no crystal on there. So there was a bit of a race between a few companies who could come up with something, and Rolex came up with this very simple and ingenious little system. I know obviously Omega has their screw down, they have their crown at the 10 o'clock position, but I think it's a tad ugly really, but that's horses for courses, one of those things. So anyway, that was why they had this on the side here. Now, this watch started off its production in 1967 and went through, I believe, to 76. In that time period, there was a few variations. Basically, the big variations was on the Mark 1 and Mark 2, and they had a slim case. This, on the other hand, is the Mark 3. This was the first time the larger, thicker case was used. And so to me, this is almost really when the Sea Dweller became, you know, it actually stamped its mark, because all Sea Dwellers are slightly thicker than Submariners, and I like the fact this is when it really happened. The Mark III is quite a rare dial. I can't really go into all the different differences between the dials. All I would say is that for some reason the Mark I, Mark III, Mark V and VI seem to retain their whiteness more. I don't know why. The other ones tend to go a lot more creamy, which is, you know, it's quite nice really to see the patina, but I do also quite like this. It does look very fresh. So that's why these do tend to still look, even after this, after all, is a 1973 watch, and it still looks, you know, it still looks incredibly new. One of the other things on the Sea Dweller, which was slightly different to the Sub, is it has this heavily domed crystal. I believe the crystal was called a super dome, and I don't know if I'm quite catching it on camera here, but you can see the reflection it gives. It is really, it's quite nice. It is made of an acrylic, or perspex, sorry, and it will pick up scratches. I think I've got a tiny one just down here, but you can polish it out. That's not a big problem. So it does have a dome crystal, but this one here, the Sea Dweller, does have a date window. And normally Rolex, obviously, when you have a date window, would have a Cyclops, but this started the fashion of the Sea Dweller always never had a Cyclops. Reason being is, at the time, this watch could handle 610 meters versus the 200 meters of the Submariner. And one of the reasons why it could do that was this heavily domed crystal, and obviously chunkier case and so forth. And if you were to put a Cyclops on there, that would cause an uneven amount of pressure around that crystal, because you'd have one hot spot where the Cyclops is. So that's why they never actually had a Cyclops on early Sea Dwellers. And to me, I know the new SD43 has a Cyclops, and in some ways I think it's a little bit of a shame, because that's one of the iconic traits of the Sea Dweller, is it, but it hadn't. And that's why I really do like this, and all the way up to the SD4K, because I feel the SD4K was the last true Sea Dweller. But again, personal choices. You may also note on the actual date window there, being one of the old models, this does have an open 6 on the date there. So open 9s and open 6, always a good mark of the older vintage watches. Now, this watch comes with the actual movement. Before I get started on that, the movement of this watch is the 1575, and that was basically a modded version of the 1570. 26 jewel movement, 19,800 oscillations, and basically where the modifications came, it gave it an extra 4 hours power reserve, so it goes up to 48 hours, and a slightly higher beat rate. So that's the main difference. And this movement was a real workhorse for Rolex in the late 60s through to quite late on in the 70s also. It's pretty bomb-proof. And I find, even with this watch now, I still get about less than 2 seconds variation in a 24-hour period. So it is very good. It is also a hacking movement. But again, first world problems here. If you do want to change the date, you do have to cycle all the way through the setting of the time. So if you're unlucky enough to pick your watch up and it says, and the date window is the 1st and it's the 16th, you've got to cycle all the way through with the time to actually get to that date. Again, really, you know, when you're talking a watch of this caliber, it is very much first world problems. But there you go. So the bracelet on this watch is the, let me get a closer look at this, as I believe it's the it's the 93150, and the end links are 585. Now, the very first models, these are the solid type of links. The very first model had the folded bracelet, which I believe was the 9315, and also then came with either the 280 or the 380 end links, like on my red sub, where it's actually folded steel bent over. But to be fair, the later ones, so this is a 1973 watch, came with this. This also, I'm lucky enough to actually have the diver link extension. Again, these are just all nice things for collectors to have in the set. It's always nice if you have this. Not that anyone would be taking a watch now like this diving, but it is actually nice to have, and does have the proper clasp on there, where the lines don't continue through here. If the lines continue through, that would be a later one. But they did keep this clasp for quite some time. Now, this watch, I do actually have a lot of paperwork for it. I do have the original box, which is obviously very nice. And I don't know if you can see all this paperwork, but I have a load of paperwork for this watch. Unfortunately, I don't have the original guarantee card. If I was lucky enough to have that, then this watch would double in value on top of what its price is now. But it comes as a double-edged sword, this. I have all this paperwork, and this is from when it went in for a major service back in 1994. The gentleman who owned this watch actually was a proper diver who worked on rigs, both gas and oil. And basically, it went in for a major service back in 1994, and where I think he had quite a lot of work done to it, looking at all his paperwork. It had, unfortunately, a new case back, because I believe he caught it there and knocking the case back as well. I think he had to put a new clasp on there. I say new clasp, they still were using this clasp. And I believe it was a new crystal as well. So the downside of this watch, I have paperwork from Rolex stating that the serial number is a 3.5 million, which ties into the Mark III dial, but they changed it because it got heavily damaged. So now it's a 4.4 million serial number. And unfortunately, this is the big shame, they replaced the case back. Now, at the time, you couldn't get the patent pending case back, which is synonymous with the double reds. This has the great white, which is the 1977 case back, which was fitted on the great whites. The great white being when they changed over to a white dial. They removed the two lines in red and actually went to white. And actually, that's still quite a very rare watch, because I believe it was only in production for just over 1 year, and that was it. So it's a little bit of a shame, I'm not going to lie. I would have loved to have had the red case, the patent pending case back, but I don't mind quite so much because I have all the supporting paperwork from Rolex. I think I've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of paperwork from Rolex with all the work which went onto the watch, what they did on the watch. And I believe it cost back in 94 the service. I'm not sure if I've got to, but I think the service was 390, and there's some other work for 440 there. So there was over £700 paid back in the very early 90s on this watch. Now, what I also did with this watch, which most people will think is sacrilegious, I actually put it in for a service myself. I only got the watch mid to late 2018, and I immediately went into the, I found a good Rolex service centre in Prague, which actually did the work on the watch in-house and still got the Rolex paperwork and everything for it, which subsequently means this watch is under warranty by Rolex. Now, I don't know many Rolex double red sea dwellers which are actually still under warranty. This watch still has warranty on it, about another 10 months of warranty. It's still guaranteed by Rolex, which is really nice. And because it was a small in-house one, I got a bag full of the bits. I'll drop some detailed pictures in now. But basically, they replaced the Superdome crystal. They had a new mainspring fitted, a new escape wheel, new barrel, new stem, a new crown. I say the escape wheel and pallet forks, escapement. So I had all that done. And I also have, I'm quite lucky enough to have this, I do have a spare bezel for this watch as well, because it came on one, but I did actually have a spare one. I've even got a spare black bezel there for my LV sub. So you don't see these many often. These are the actual bezel cases for the Rolexes. These are quite nice and rare little things to have. So basically this, I had them work on the watch. I told them not to touch the dial, not to touch the hands or the bezel. And so I've had the watch lightly polished, and as you can see, it looks incredibly good. You still have the bevel edges on there. One of the ways to normally tell if you've over polished a watch is basically you lose these bevels, and you get a lot of times the pins can sometimes stick out if they've lost a lot of material on the sides. You can actually get the spring bars sticking out, which is not desirable. So this is, I say, but it's one of the icons really of the Rolex vintage range, apart from a Paul. Sorry, quick wrist check. I'm wearing a at the moment Christopher Ward Trident GMT Mark II, I think that is. But hang, here we go. This is actually on the wrist. It's still a 14mm watch. It has a 20mm bracelet. So to me, that's the classic look, really, of the classic Rolex size watch, 40mm. And it's lovely. There's obviously no lume left from the tritium dial or anything like that. That's completely gone. So it's, I don't know, it's just, yeah, a real kind of, a really nice watch. Things like, oh, one thing I should have mentioned, the bezel is again the same as the Submariner of the day. There's no ratchet mechanism on there. So it can go either way, it's bi-directional. The crown is still the triple lock crown system on the side there. It has the end links are obviously not solid, they are folded steel, so you still get a nice jangle off that there. But yeah, this is the Rolex Double Red. You'll sometimes see them quoted as being, you might just see Rolex Sea Dweller Red or DRSD as quoted on the sometimes on the forums. The overall, it's just it's really iconic. It really is one of those groundbreaking Rolexes from back in the day. Nothing really comes close to it. It has got quite a bit of a heft to it, and you see the size there. The crystal really does stick out quite far. But it feels a lot more substantial than the 1680 I have. When you put this on the wrist, it just feels like you're wearing a watch. It's nice. But I really like it. But to be fair, I don't wear this one a heck of a lot. I maybe only wear it twice a month for a couple of days just to keep it going. They're just getting too expensive, really. So it would not be an everyday watch for me. I just wear it sometimes if I'm going out for a meal or something like that. But I do like to wear it. I'm not one of these who will put it away in a safe and just hope for it to go up and up in price. I will actually wear the watch. Yes, you can mark the crystal quite easily, but again, you can also polish the crystal quite easily. So, horses for courses, really. I think that you've got to get these watches out and show them, show them to the world. They are nice watches, and I don't want to hide them away in a safe. I want to actually wear the watch. But as you can see, it looks really nice on the wrist. It still looks like a kind of modern day Rolex as such. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope I could do the watch some justice, and incredibly hard, but I hope I did. So anyway, all the best, and I will see you at the next video. Bye.